Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on? I'm going back.
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, episode 21. We are legal to drink now.
How about that?
We made it. So, yeah, episode 21, September 12th, 2020. Good morning, Jay. What's going on?
Morning. Yeah. Hey, Kerry. Not a lot. Just been able to take in sports at a rate recently that we haven't known for a very long time. So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about, a lot of bad stuff to talk about from a perspective of a fandom, I guess, for you and I. But let's get into it, man. We got a football. We have a Texas Longhorn football game today, man.
Yeah, let's jump right into this cup of coffee here. The Horns open tonight. Viewers, obviously last week was our big Texas Longhorn preview show, so we're not going to get, they haven't played yet. We're not going to get too deep into the preview for tonight's game against UTEP.
But if you missed that show last week, it'll be a good refresher to go back and just click on it and learn a little bit about the team before tonight's game. Absolutely.
And hell, even if you can't see it before tonight's game, I don't know if this game is going to be the type of thing that's going to change too much about what we previewed on that episode. So
it better not.
yeah, or else we're in trouble. Well, let's get into that actually. Let's get into that. Football's here, college football's here. NFL was here Thursday night. We'll get into that a little bit later. But let's get into a quick Longhorn preview tonight.
Yep.
Texas versus UTEP, 7 p.m. kick, Longhorn Network. Jay, any thoughts on this game? The spread is 43 points.
If Texas is going to have the type of season that we feel like, that I feel like, and judging by your predictions last show, the same type of season that you think they're in for, this game tonight needs to be just a stomp a mud hole, mollywop, move on to the next one type of a game that we were used to for such a long time under Mac. This is a game, and they do have a game under their belts. They did play Stephen F. Austin last week, which if you're Texas, I think you'd much rather have a team that hasn't played any games just like you, even at the level of that we're talking of their opponent this week. But for me, there should be no problems handling this. Right? I mean, we should be talking about at halftime. We should be saying, oh, how much time is Casey Thompson going to get? How much time is the third string, his hand going to get? Right? I mean, this is what we should be talking about.
Hudson Card. Sorry.
Card. Yeah. Thank you. Card.
But on that note, Herb Hand probably could step in and play quarterback in the second half of this game. And it shouldn't make any kind of difference, right? Like, I do think you mentioned – I think that was an interesting point, though, about UTEP having played last week. I mean, there is something different about hitting somebody that's not your own team that kind of knocks the cobwebs off and, it's a different feel. I do wonder if UTEP's so bad, this shouldn't make any kind of difference. But if those first few drives of the game – it seems like Texas is maybe trying to get their cobwebs knocked out to kind of, they're finally hitting somebody different for the first time, where UTEP has a week of that under their belts. I don't care. I mean, whatever. UTEP is not a good football team. This is
no.
Like we mentioned before, it's a 43-point spread. Yeah, I mean, it's a big number, but Texas should cover this. This should.
Yeah. Jake Smith is out with a hamstring injury, which is not something that I don't like to see. Soft tissue injuries before the season even starts. To me, that's something that I think we may be on hamstring watch with Smith for the rest of the season. That just may be what we're having to deal with.
Yeah.
With him, which is not something that you want to deal with, but it was the right move to sit him out for this game, have another full week of recovery. Or 2 weeks, I should say, with the bye week in between games. So sitting Jake Smith out against UTEP should not affect anything. And we'll see Whittington get in and see some meaningful time. And Whittington, I think, to me, was one of those big question marks in that receiver room, especially after with Smith playing that key slot role. Were we going to get the full committed Jordan Whittington this season? And we'll get to see it from the start, because I think he's going to want to make a name for himself early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of getting some extra playing time, we know the depth chart came out this week. Keontae Ingram's the number 1 name on the running back area of the depth chart. Rashawn Johnson's number 2, and then Bijan Robinson's in there. One of the benefits of playing a team like UTEP and getting out front early and keeping it out front is just like with Whittington, I mean, due to injury, he's going to get some early playing time, but it'll be nice to see Bijan Robinson, I think, get some run from hopefully an extended period of time where we can really see what he can do early on. That's the benefit of a game like this is, it's getting that depth tested against somebody that's not yourself. And Texas should cruise. This should be done and dusted by halftime.
I agree. Keontae Ingram, if he doesn't go out and show out immediately against this team, against this defense, I think his hold on that number 1 slot at running back it might be one of the loosest. It might be in terms of a 1A, 1B, 1C sort of thing. I don't know that he'll stay at that number 1 slot for too long. And even if he does, I don't think it's going to matter, because all these guys are going to play. They're all going to get touches. They're all going to see time. They're too talented not to. And Tom Herman is not in a position to not get a guy like Bijan Robinson on the field to see what he can do. Everybody, all the chips are on the table now. You're not holding anything back. A game like UTEP, we should see a couple of running backs go for 100 yards tonight. I would be disappointed if they don't, to be honest. And I think Bijan Robinson is actually going to be one of those running backs that goes for 100 tonight, just because the amount of touches he's going to get and the type of defense that they're going up against. We should see Sam Ehlinger stake a claim, this is why I'm a Heisman candidate. We should see Bijan Robinson say, this is why I'm going to be, in running for Big 12 Freshman of the Year. We're going to see all those things out tonight in force, and it should be a good one. You got it? You care to drop a prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to go 52-10 Texas. I think, 52-10 was that really common score years ago under Mac whenever against these types of opponents. It seemed like every year it was like 52-10 against Sam Houston or whoever it was. I'm going to go 52-10. I know it's a 43-point spread. And just tricky with those big numbers. It's, I think the fact that it's an opening game, Texas hadn't played anybody yet. Just to this is almost like a scrimmage, I feel like, for Texas, to where they're going to just really get some young guys in, because you're going to need all those bodies this season. And maybe UTEP gets a garbage field goal or touchdown or something late to cover. But yeah, I'm going to go 52-10 Texas.
I'm going to go 63-7 Texas. I agree on the late garbage score, and we're going to, if everything goes the way that it very well should, there's going to be a lot of numbers on the field that we haven't seen before, a lot of players that we'll have to familiarize ourselves with. We'll be looking at our depth charts. We'll be looking at our roster saying who's number what. So I think they'll give up a late score, but this is going to be just Tom Herman wants to make a statement. Yeah. He wants to tell everybody we're here.
We're back.
I'm not going to say we're back. Yeah.
Let's wait till after the game to do that.
Yeah. No kidding. But I think this is a statement for Herman. He's going to make a point to score points. 63-7, Horns cruise. Hook 'em damn horns. Let's go.
Let's go.
Longhorn Network tonight if you're looking for it on your dials. So, if you don't have the super duper deluxe sports package on your local television provider, you may not be able to watch this game. But it'll be I'm anxious to watch it, man. I'm looking forward to seeing the burnt orange on the field and seeing what Sam's going to do in his senior year. I feel like it's going to be a special one, man.
I hope so. Again, for y'all that haven't seen our preview show, go back to last week's episode 20, and make sure to check that out before kickoff tonight. Well, let's keep moving along. We've got our cup of coffee is going to kind of merge in with the rest of everything going on now that we have, sports deluxe happening everywhere.
Real life sports, man. So the cool stat the other day, Kerry, it was the Rockets, Astros, and Texans all playing on the same day. That obviously had never happened before. That was something where I was like, man, that was a. I mean, I don't think they won any of those teams. Any of the Houston teams won those games, but what a cool time to be able to watch sports and consume sports at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, just today, as we're recording today, I mean, we have amongst us 5 games of interest in different sports happening today. I mean, we had Arsenal this morning, which we'll get into here in a few. We have the Astros tonight, the Rockets tonight, the Longhorns tonight, and the Dallas Stars tonight in the NHL. And then the Texans played Thursday night. And it's, you have the Cowboys Sunday night. There's everything's happening now. So it's kind of like, in terms of our structure now, it's kind of like, we'll get in this cup of coffee and we start going through the sports news, and then next thing you know, we've covered all the actual sports that are happening.
We've run through everything, yeah, man, for sure.
So
where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Astros.
Do we have to? Can we not talk Astro?
Let's get it over with.
All right, okay, fair.
Let's get it over with.
All right, that's fair. All right.
Those who watch the show, I think, have kind of picked up on the Astros can be a little bit of a streaky team. One week we're talking about how they're under 500 and now they're falling out of the race. Then the following week they go on a winning streak and they're back in the mix and only a game or something back of Oakland. Well, here we are again, under 500, 7 games back of the Oakland A's for the AL West, 2.5 ahead of Seattle. And there's 15 games left to go in the season. This month of September has been an absolute nightmare for the Houston Astros. I don't know any other way to describe it. Jay, any kind of adjective you want to put on this month for the Astros, or?
No, I'd rather not, because I know that sometimes this is, the families gather around their computer screens and telephones to watch our show. So I'm not going to use the kind of language that I want to use to describe the Astros, because I just feel like at this point we may be seeing who they are, who the Astros are as a currently constructed roster. Take that for whatever you will. Scandal, just whatever,
whatever your angle or your perception is,
right?
Apply that, because you may be right.
Yeah, when we look at this team, and I'm not even going to talk about the bullpen yet. Just talk about the bats. And you look at the bats, the reason that the Astros are in these games, and you look at who it is. It's Kyle Tucker, which you and I have been Team Ted for a while now. Team Ted. Man.
It's actually
on Tucker.
I think both of us have been hyping him up, at least for the last couple seasons, as he's kind of made his appearances. And if there has been a bright spot, it's to see him actually put it together. Like, he's on the lineup card every day now. There's
he has to be.
You can't take him off. He has earned his spot. He's in.
Well, and that was the deal. That was what I didn't understand for the longest time. Is I know you have these, you have these guys on the roster like a Josh Reddick, who is a veteran, gritty guy that you know what you're going to get out of him. But last year, on that run that they were making, it was like, you couldn't have given Kyle Tucker meaningful at-bats all throughout the regular season to prepare him, because now you see what you get out of him when he gets regular at-bats. You and I literally saw him in Round Rock on a day-in, day-out basis be a 30-30 guy. There's no doubt that the talent was there. And then you get him up and you give him – you don't give him every day at bats. He can't get into a rhythm. Well, now you're seeing the Kyle Tucker that you get when you give him every day at bats. He gets into a rhythm. He's been the most valuable player of the team, in my opinion. It's
yeah, completely. I think I think you can make an argument for Maldonado.
Yeah,
he's come up in big moments for the early part of the season. He carried that team, and he's come up in big moments too. Whenever a run needs to be driven in, he's been in those kind of spots, which is really not the kind of player he's been throughout his career. That's not why he's on this roster.
No,
But
and
he
the
stepped
thing
up. I
about
mean,
it,
he's been fantastic.
and he's been hitting at the bottom of the lineup,
Yeah.
7, 8, which tells you what he's driving in the guys that are hitting 6th and 7th, which is Kyle Tucker, Carlos Correa.
All right, everybody. Sorry about that. A little technical difficulty, but we're back. Jay, you want to get back into what you were saying? Last we heard you were talking about Carlos Correa in this lineup.
Yeah, Maldonado's driving in guys like Tucker and Correa, and it's not the RBI guys that you would think and need for this team to be successful aren't the ones that are producing. It's Maldonado, it's Tucker, it's the guys towards the end of the lineup that are doing this. And that is a big reason why the Astros are where they are. In addition to that, Kerry, your favorite thing, I know, the bullpen.
I don't have anything to say about the bullpen. It's been
Gas
atrocious.
Can City.
Atrocious. It's I know we kind of talked about this before between the two of us. Like, there's talk about, Dusty Baker's talking about Justin Verlander coming back at the end of the month, which great. Awesome. You could all, obviously you want Justin Verlander back in your starting rotation. The starting pitching on this team hasn't been bad. They've been fine. They've been probably, I think you could argue they've been pretty good. They've been doing enough to keep runs off the board. We just talked about the lack of offense, but the starting pitching has been okay. And bringing Justin Verlander back would be great, but unless he goes a full 9 innings every time he goes out to pitch, it's not going to make a difference because this bullpen collapses. They are in any high leverage situation or low leverage situation, they just crater. And that's why this team has only won 3 games in the month of September. Unless the bullpen gets fixed, which I don't see that happening this season with the injuries and just with what they actually have on offer, then I don't think there's any improvement coming from out of that. And that's why, honestly, I don't even know why you would even try to bring Justin Verlander back at this point. Like, what's the use? I know he's going to want to play, but what's the use? Trying to rush him back.
You got a lot of guys on that team that we talked about earlier, how streaky they are. And if everybody's in the lineup and firing up on all cylinders, you don't want to face the Astros in that scenario. We just haven't seen it from them this year. Like, if Altuve's in the lineup and himself, or at least 75% of himself, Bregman gets out of whatever funk he's been in. It's just if everybody, Uncle Mike, Brantley's been Brantley, the professional consummate pro, all the superlatives you can say about him, the guy that you want in your lineup. You don't want to face that lineup if everybody's head is right. Like, you don't. If they're healthy, if their bodies aren't breaking down and they're in their place, you don't want to face that lineup. But I don't know that we'll see that this year, man. Like, it's just –
yeah,
that's why
exactly.
I don't want to say don't – that's why I don't want to say, throw in the towel, don't – because if you can bring Verlander back and you can get him back at any level, it's going to make your club better. Just for the sole reason that I feel like the Astros could squeak into the playoffs, even because right now, as it sits, they'd make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So because of the formatting, they'd be the worst. They'd have the worst record out of anybody in the playoffs, probably most likely. But they'd make the playoffs. If this team gets hot, they can make a run. If for whatever reason, I don't even know who it would be in the bullpen to make it right. Like you said, it's just you look at those arms and it's like, how's this going to change? But for whatever, if it could go right for this team, they have the talent on the roster for it to go right and make a run. So you hope to see Verlander back, but not when the bullpen's walking more batters per 9 innings thrown than anybody in the league. You will not win, period. And I don't care who's on fire at the plate. I don't care who's in the lineup. If you're putting that many guys on base as a bullpen, you will lose, period.
Yep. And they've got about 2 weeks to figure it out because 15 games to go. This is going to go by pretty quickly. They need to figure it out before the postseason.
And I'd say that the schedule is favorable, but we look at how they've been performing lately. There's a bunch of games against the Rangers who on paper you should decimate. Nothing's a gimme right now. There are no givens.
No.
There are none.
No, and they've been terrible on the road. And it just doesn't bode well. But we'll see. This is a big week. Got 2 games against the LA Dodgers this weekend, and maybe that could be a chance to kind of get some momentum going and turn the fortunes around. But yeah,
if you go to
we're
LA
approaching
and
it
you
quick.
Get your ass kicked, if you get your ass kicked tonight and tomorrow night against the Dodgers, and then you got to come back home and play against a Rangers team that wants nothing more than to just spoil your season and to bury you. You got to come out of this weekend with at least a split or be respectable here. Don't go out there and get blown up by the Dodgers.
Yeah, because the Mariners aren't very good, but they're only 2.5 games back of the Astros. Mm-hmm. That's a team that probably has a different feel in their locker room, in their clubhouse, than the Astros do right now. The Astros are probably feeling a little down in the dumps. Nothing's going right for us, all those kinds of things, where the Mariners are sitting there going, we're 2.5 out here, and we got some games against the Astros left. They're going to have something to play for against Houston if Houston doesn't figure this thing out. And those are the kind of teams you have to look out for, the ones that have, they're playing for themselves at that point. They can get into the postseason. Yep. So I know, it's crazy to think, but here we are. This short, weird season that we talked about, teams that you otherwise wouldn't expect to be in this race are in it. So,
well, obviously my overly optimistic game win projection in the preseason, it looks now very, very foolish, but it's like on paper, the Astros are built to put together to go 40-20 in a 60-game stretch.
Absolutely.
And that's, I'm looking at that, and you look at everything that's happened, and it's the whole whatever can go wrong will go wrong sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's all gone wrong. There are very few stretches of the season where you look and you see, the Astros are playing like the team that everybody thought that they should be, by what's on paper. And we'll see that Seattle series coming up. What an opportunity to come in. I know that's next week, but to come in, finish whatever you do against the Dodgers. Okay, starting on Tuesday with the Rangers, you'll know where you are, how many games you need to win. You'll know where Seattle is. You got the Rangers, 3 against the Diamondbacks, 3 against the Mariners, 4 against.
Welcome back, everybody. Zoom apparently didn't like our discussion about the Houston Astros. I guess it made Zoom as sick as it makes us, talking about how poor this team has played. So
I understand.
So
I get it.
No more Astros talk today. Zoom has mandated that. So
yeah,
let's move on.
I just heard from their CEO during the commercial. He said, if you do Astros talk anymore today, you guys are done. I said, all right, cool, man.
Yeah, well, we're done with it. Trust us.
Right.
It's one of the last things we want to talk about today.
We're your guys.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it anymore. So let's get into let's talk about this Arsenal match this morning. Season debut, 1 game, 1 win, away. There's a lot to hit on this, but we'll kind of go through. Arsenal win 3-0 this morning at Fulham. Fulham was just promoted from the championship, the 2nd division, so they're not very good. They're going to be a relegation candidate this year. But this is the kind of game that Arsenal has struggled with over the last however many years. Relegation type team on the road, a team that's going to kind of park the bus and, get physical with them. And they took the game to them. This was it's not the most glamorous matchup, but it was a professional job done by Arsenal.
It's what you want to get out of the squad with the expectations that Arsenal have this year. I know we'll touch a little more on expectations later, but it's what you want to see as a supporter of a top club. You go out week one, match day one, handle your business. Your star players look like star players. Your new signings look like you should have signed them, and you did good, on that. It's the type of match I wanted to see out of Arsenal this morning, and it's making my confidence in Mikel Arteta grow even larger, by the day.
Yeah, absolutely. This is picking up where things left off towards the end of the season, where Arteta won the FA Cup, won the Community Shield a couple weeks ago, I guess now, and it's moving along. I think the most encouraging thing for me was the new signings. Willian, the free signing that came over from Chelsea. I've seen differing. I think I saw that he was credited with 2 assists, but I also saw he was credited with 3 assists. So in a 3-0 game, he had a hand in every single goal, or foot, you should say. But he was involved in every single goal today. He looked excellent, and he hit a post on a free kick. Had the keeper beat. Should have been a goal for him.
Right.
A free signing. I know he's on high wages and those kinds of things, but like an amazing debut. But I think he's going to take a backseat to Gabriel, the new defender, the Brazilian defender signed from Lille in France. 22 years old. He looks the part. And it was interesting to see him get the start today, the first game of the season, when he just came into the club about a week or 2 ago. And he was incredible. He scored the second goal on a corner kick, got up above everybody and put it away. But what was amazing for me, he was 107 of 113 passing today. He was at a 95% pass rate. So, and these weren't just little passes either. You watch the match, like he was distributing the ball really, really well. What a signing. I mean, he looked worth every single penny that Arsenal paid for him, which is going to turn out to be a bargain, I think. He looked incredible.
When you think about debuts, when you think about a sort of – it just seems like Arsenal have never been able to get out of their own way. No matter who they bring in, we just seen year after year Arsenal not be able to put a shine on that person that they just brought in, or really find a way to put them into the best positions to be successful and allow them to use their strengths to their fullest potential. That is what it makes Mikel Arteta, already in his young career, a special manager. He is already getting the most out of people. We didn't see that with Emery. By the end of the time that Wenger was gone, we stopped seeing him get the most out of people. This is what it's like to be coached at a high level. And we're seeing that from Arteta. He was a guy that we both pointed to when we knew Emery was out the door, as a guy that, after having a little bit of time under Pep at Man City, we knew that Arteta would come in and bring the type of managerial prowess, even without all of the experience. He's done it, and it was an impressive first match day of this new campaign for Arteta and the Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that stood out for me is you're starting to see some depth develop there. You're starting to see where you can bring off Willian as a sub and bring on Pepe. Where a guy, you're starting to see that just the quality start to look better there, where Dani Ceballos was a guy that was an automatic starter. I know he just came back. He's going to be in the lineup more, but you can take off Granit Xhaka and bring Ceballos on late in the game. You're starting to see, like, Saka didn't get any time today, but he was on the bench. The depth is starting to build, and he's starting to form this team in a way where he can swap the pieces out, and you're not going to see the drop off in such a drastic manner. And that's key. It's great management. It's great in-game management. And it also, it's providing players with competition for their spots. And so It's very encouraging. The schedule's not going to do
I
Arsenal any
agree.
favors here in the next
Well,
few weeks, but so we're going to learn a lot over the next month. But you can't ask for a better
no,
start than
it's
what
going
they
to
had
get
this
tougher.
morning.
It's going to get tougher quicker. I think when we'll really learn Arteta's first big test will be when we start to see a few guys nicked up. You know, we'll see a
Yeah.
guy have to miss a couple of weeks, and then how does he adjust with the depth that we're talking about? But then the in-game adjustments after that, when your top guys that you would normally bring off the bench are the guys that you may be subbing off. How do you make those adjustments? So right now, when you have your full squad and you have everybody that you want, shining debut for the season. We'll see, and I think this run will be a true test with the schedule. And we'll see some guys that early season. It always happens. One of those one or two guys will always just get a little nicked up and miss a game or two. How do you make those adjustments early on in this season? And that will shape Arsenal's the beginning of Arsenal season. And I think he'll do a good job with it.
Yeah, and I always find it interesting. You see what the lineup is for the opening day. The transfer window is still open for another few weeks into October. The recruitment is still going to continue. There still might be another big signing or two to come, as well as departures. I mean, today's lineup had a number of guys that have been rumored to leave,
right?
And so, we'll see how that kind of plays out. But I mean, you can't. All you can do is play the game in front of you with the team that you have. And they did the job today in professional fashion. So
Absolutely.
Off to a good start. And as of right now, top of the league
yeah.
as of recording. So don't get to say that too often. Hopefully we can say that for a little bit longer. So, let's move on to some playoff sports here. One of the games that we mentioned tonight is Houston Rockets versus the LA Lakers. And the Rockets are on the brink. This is they're down 3-1 in this series. The Lakers have been pretty decisive in their wins in this series. You might think I don't see the Rockets coming back. I don't see them winning tonight, let alone coming back to win this series. I think it's finished tonight. I think the Lakers advance.
I agree. Bye, Finley. See you later, buddy. Have a good walk. Frequent guest of the show, Finley, was letting me know that him and Mom are about to go on a walk. He actually has a scooter, and he's got all of his helmet and all of his protective gear on. He's ready to roll. So
nice. I was going to ask if he got sick of hearing the Astros talk too, and so he just decided to hit. I'm out of here.
It's like, if you guys are going to talk Astros anymore, I'm out of here, man.
I'm hitting the road.
Yeah. Hitting the bricks. Speaking of hitting the bricks, I think that's what the Rockets are going to be doing after tonight's game, because I think LA finishes the job tonight as well. It's too much. They're too much. They're good. We discussed early on in the playoffs, the Lakers and the Clippers are going to be the premier teams in the Western Conference, that nothing has changed. And the Raptors did lose last night to and that's another guy, if you want to talk about a great coach, Brad Stevens for the Celtics. I'll rave about him all day long. But that's a guy, that's a team that I will never count out a Brad Stevens coach team ever, period. They had a nice hard-fought Game 7 win last night over Toronto, who I really thought would.
We've discussed the Raptors on this show.
Yeah.
We've discussed defending champs and how good they looked going back into the bubble without their, a team that lost superstars this previous season, looking as good as, and just how well coached they are, and coming back in that series with all the momentum, and the Celtics able to put them away. Yeah, I completely agree. We've discussed the Lakers and Clippers. They're the class of the West. I mean, there's no
easy.
Yeah. So, but on that note, though, well, actually, I'll let you. Sorry, I don't want to. I think you had a point there. I don't want to jump ahead of you.
No, I just think that with with the way that the lineups are, it was when the Rockets won game 2 and it was like, oh, the Rockets have the blueprint and this is how you play small ball and this is what you do. And then the Lakers are like, okay, let's make a couple of adjustments. And they have. They're a well-coached team. They're an obviously very talented team. When you have LeBron and Anthony Davis there, that right there. It's enough to carry any roster. But they have the pieces around them too, and different ones make Alex Caruso one night, or Kyle Kuzma the next night. Whoever it is, it's different guys are stepping up for the Lakers, and when you have that plus LeBron and Anthony Davis,
it's hard to beat.
It's a wrap. Yeah. So I agree. I think the Rockets are done after tonight, and then moving forward is this a team that's going to be based around James Harden and Russell Westbrook for the foreseeable future with their contracts? I
think it's going to be.
It has to be, right?
Yeah. It's frustrating because we talk about the Clippers. How many of those players in that Clippers lineup were in this Houston squad that made deep runs previously? Montrezl Harrell, Lou Williams, there's numerous guys, Pat Beverly. Like, these are all guys that were in this lineup for Houston. I guess this goes to a bigger question about can the Rockets win a championship with James Harden as the guy?
I just think it's hard, with at his peak right now, with what he's having to go up against the other talented superstars in this league. It's just the Rockets with James Harden at the helm will always win a ton of games.
Yeah,
they'll always outscore a ton of people. Period. They will. But is this set up for playoff basketball? Is
right?
Is the formula that the Rockets use to win games, is that set up to win in the playoffs? The Rockets are similar to the Astros in a sense where they can get hot and beat anybody. If the Rockets are on for a stretch of time, that's a team that can run off during the regular season 8 or 9 or 10 wins, and then during the playoffs, win a series in 5 games like it's nothing, like the Lakers are doing right now to them.
Right.
They're capable of that, but over sustained playoff series after series after series, when you play the best talent in the league, I don't know if the formula that the Rockets use is a championship formula. They're going to be fun to watch for the next few years with Harden and Westbrook. Is that a championship formula? It's hard for me to say that it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think the trickiest thing is you talk about the Lakers. There's a plan B. If plan A isn't working for the Lakers, they can go plan B. They can go plan C. They have the personnel and the players to do that. With the Rockets, it's kind of like, if plan A isn't working, there really is no other plan B. They don't have a dominant under the basket physical presence that they can start grinding away with. They don't have, if Harden's not hitting his shots. It was like, they found out a way in that game 7 against Oklahoma City when Harden was cold. But, when he's not on, that's kind of it. And that's where I think it's frustrating with the Rockets, is that you just, there's not that like plan B, plan C that they can go to grind out and gut out a series. It's kind of like, well, if the threes aren't falling, well, okay, that's it. We'll try again tomorrow night. Like,
yeah, and even with Russell Westbrook, even with Russell Westbrook being still that guy that should, that gets to the basket, when he wants to a lot, he still has the mid-range game. Like, but everybody else on the team, and basically the way that the offense is structured is around the 3-point line. And when they're not hitting, when PJ Tucker isn't hitting the threes from the corner, it's not happening for the Rockets. When Eric Gordon isn't having, Eric Gordon is one of those guys that can be the reason the Rockets win a game. I don't want to rely on Eric Gordon every night in and night out to do those things when the rest of the team is ice cold from three. So I mean,
Right.
I just don't know that that's a championship formula. And it's fun to have Russell Westbrook and James Harden on the team that I like to watch and support the most, but I don't know that they're ever going to win with those two at the helm.
Well, they're missing the last piece of that Oklahoma City foundation that they had. There's not a Kevin Durant on this,
Yep.
but that goes to what we're talking about with like
Yep.
this. If Plan A is not working, that Oklahoma City team. If Durant wasn't hitting shots, well, you got Harden and Westbrook that they were able to rely on. If those guys aren't on, then Durant's probably on. He can drive the basket and do some different things for you that provides a different element. I know it's really easy to say like, oh, well, the Rockets just need a Kevin Durant and then they'll be set. Like, obviously that's not going to happen, but like they are missing that kind of piece to tie what Westbrook and Harden can do together to win a championship. So
I just
we'll see what Morey does, but yeah, it's going to be tough with who he has to compete with in the West.
You just can't, in my opinion, you just can't not have an interior presence.
Right.
I'm not saying you have to have a center like Hakeem or Shaq that you run the offense through, but you have to have an interior presence in this league to win. And the Rockets, when you're starting some nights, when you're starting PJ Tucker at center,
that's a problem.
I mean, against the right teams, okay, you can beat a lot of teams that way, but against the best teams in a 7-game series, you can't. It's just
that's what the Rockets have looked their most competitive. Well, I shouldn't say most competitive, but their best looks at winning championships with under this, this Harden regime, if you want to call it that, has been when they've had someone like Clint Capella, a Dwight Howard, like some kind of presence down low that at least gives the other team something to kind of take into account and have to work with.
Well, and then you look at the Rockets like shot chart and like their heat charts where they make all their shots, and it's either layups or threes, which, okay, again, if you're on, that's great.
Yeah, it's bombs away. Great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, wonderful. If you're going to shoot 58 threes in a game or 55 or whatever it was the other night, okay, that's great. But if you're not hitting, man, like you're in a world of hurt because you have no other way to. Anyways, we're laboring that into the ground, but that's just the point. Is like that's the whole deal with the Rockets. Is can you win with that formula? I don't think you can.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be an interesting offseason for Daryl Morey. So, moving on, we'll get into some other playoff talk here. The Dallas Stars play tonight as well. Game 4 of their series against the Vegas Golden Knights. The Dallas Stars lead the series 2-1. They are now 2 wins away from making their first trip back to the Stanley Cup final since 2000. It's been 20 years. This is the closest that the Stars have been to the Stanley Cup final since 2000, being only 2 wins out. I mean, we talk about plan A, plan B, plan C. The Dallas Stars have seemed to find a way to tap into every type of plan against their opponents in this postseason. Jay, have you caught any of these games? Have you watched any of this series?
Well, it's just I have in and out. I haven't sat down and watched a ton of it, but I have watched some. And when you see, it's the same way when you because they're going up against the Vegas Golden Knights right now, who you and I don't watch a ton of hockey, but I know that that's a damn good team. It doesn't take much to watch them to know that's the upper crust,
Yeah.
So it reminds me of those teams that they just find ways, like the New York Giants as a 6th seed and when they won the Super Bowl. Teams that find, no matter what the sport, teams that find ways to win no matter what around playoff time, that don't have to stick to any one formula to win. Yeah. Teams that just find ways to win, which is what the Rockets are incapable of doing. teams that find ways to win in any sport are the most dangerous in playoff time. And the Stars have shown time after time they have the capability to beat you multiple ways. They've shown that there's multiple ways to skin a cat. And that is why they're so dangerous. And that's why they have Vegas up against the ropes right now.
Yeah, and it's the way that the Stars are doing it is almost a throwback. They're relying on goaltending heavily, but this is their backup goaltender. This isn't even the number one guy, but he's putting it together every night. Vegas has been nearly doubling the shots that Dallas has been putting on them. The leading scorer for Dallas in the postseason is a defenseman. The big guns like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin haven't exactly lit up the score sheet, but they've been contributing. They've been doing the small things and doing things to help contribute. All four lines for the Stars have been doing their jobs. They're killing penalties at a pretty impressive rate. They're blocking shots. They're playing physical. They're fine. The series against the Colorado Avalanche was a shootout series. Those games are like 5-4, 6-3, like these high scoring series, where this series against Vegas has been incredibly low scoring. Mm-hmm. They won 1-0 in game 1 with a shutout of Vegas. Stars get shut out in game 2, but then the game the other night was a 3-2 overtime win for the Stars. They're
hard fought.
It's hard fought. They're playing physical. They're not backing down from Vegas, who can roll 4 deep lines out there. And they also have 2 goaltenders that they can, if one's not doing too great, they can swap another one out. Dallas is just finding ways to win. The way that they started in the bubble with the round robin games didn't look good. It carried over from their losing streak at the end when COVID hit and the season was put on hold. They still are under an interim coach. And they're somehow, I don't know how they're doing this. I thought the first round series against Calgary was going to be a close one, but I thought that they could just out-talent Calgary, and they did. They moved on fairly easily in that one. I may have said it on the show, I don't know if we discussed it much, but I did not pick them to beat Colorado in that series. Colorado is absolutely loaded. Firepower. They're deep, good goaltending, good defense. It went to a game 7, but they did the job. And I didn't like the matchup against Vegas either, but here we are. It's a 2-1 series lead, and they're 2 games away from playing for a cup for the first time in 20 years.
When you're looking at your third and fourth line that go in and you're not concerned, like when you're like, oh yeah, because sometimes there's that drop off, right? Even on the best teams, you see a drop off when you get to those third and fourth lines. The guys that just have to get in just for rotation purposes, and you're like, oh, kind of holding your breath. And that's not what you've seen with Dallas throughout the postseason, and that's why they've been able to stick with Vegas. You mentioned how deep Vegas is on paper, Dallas might not line up with Las Vegas in terms of what those players are, but you do see it's just they're overachieving. They're playing above their heads right now, and in the playoffs, those are the sort of teams that are the most dangerous, the ones that they don't know that they're not supposed to be that good. And I think that's where Dallas – it's almost like Dallas is like, you guys aren't supposed to be playing this well. You're not supposed to be, okay, you got through those series, but here's Vegas now. This is where you come back to earth. And Dallas hasn't figured out yet that – I mean, I know coming into the bubble they had a really good record, but then it's like, okay – maybe we're not that good. Well, they are that good.
Yeah, they were interesting. They started off the season on a terrible streak and then picked it up and were super hot for a bulk of the season. And then we're on a terrible losing streak as the season was put on hold, but they somehow were still in the top 4 in the West. So they had that ability to get a few games under their belt in the round robin thing. And now they're picking it up. But I hate saying it because it's a rival team and I don't care for them, but this reminds me of what the St. Louis Blues did last season. At Christmas last season, they were dead last in the league. They got hot, got in the playoffs, and behind a solid rookie goaltender, which isn't what the Stars have, but still an inexperienced playoff goalie. And without a lot of, superstars, but just good shot blocking, winning face-offs, doing all the little things right, getting dirty in the corners to to win puck battles, the Blues took it to a championship. And also, last postseason, the Stars were the team that took the Blues all the way to a Game 7 and into overtime, which no other team in the postseason was able to do that. So they're kind of following, they match up. They have similar profiles to what the Blues did last season. And if the Stars advance, which we'll know by the next time we record the show, it's likely going to be against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup final, which, we can preview that as we get closer to it if that does end up being the case. But again, another situation similar to Vegas, a deep team, good goaltending, all those things where the Stars are going to be fighting uphill again. And it's fun to watch. We'll see. It's really this is that point of the playoffs where it's really a shame we don't have fans in the stands for these, because the atmosphere, whether it's in Vegas or Dallas, would be incredible. And I'm glad that we have hockey back in a safe fashion and we can at least watch these games. But
yeah, those are loud buildings on a regular season night. During playoff hockey, that's over the top, exciting, the type of an atmosphere. So yeah, we'll see. That it's cool. I'm not shy about how I don't watch a ton of hockey, but knowing these names, the Bens, the Segans, that I have seen play in person up in Cedar Park, and seeing them, now as they've developed into their upper, their NHL careers and stuff like that. It has been cool to watch, recognizing some of those names that saw play quite a bit actually up at the Cedar Park Center. Yeah,
there's a lot of Texas Stars alums in this Dallas squad, which kind of tells you how they build their team. They've drafted fairly well, and they've built, from the minor leagues up, and a few key free agent signings here and there to kind of fill in the gaps. But we'll see. It'd be interesting. It'd be nice to bring the Stanley Cup back to Texas for the first time in what would be 21 years after the Stars won it in '99. So, well, let's move on from that. We can, we'll see what the Stars do this week, and we can get into that a little bit further next show. But we had NFL football Thursday night, Jay.
Sure did.
With fans in the stands. We're talking about, which is a different discussion there, but we had the Houston Texans back in Kansas City, the scene of the crime from what was, as we've discussed on this show before, really one of the worst playoff games that I can remember. I mean, that one was, at least when that game where Hoyer threw 4 interceptions, like, that was the game that Kansas City returned the opening kick for a touchdown, right? Like, you knew that one was done from the get-go.
From the start.
Where that playoff game last season was, well, I guess after the first quarter is when everything went bad. But
yeah, that was the biggest gut punch since Buffalo came back against the Oilers. But you go into week 1, Kansas City was favored, as they should have been. There was a lot of, from what I read, there was a lot of sharp money on the Texans actually to cover that spread, which I do not think they did. No, they did not. But what did you think about the performance overall?
I mean, okay, here we are. We're a couple days removed from it. When you watch the game live, it can be frustrating. But it was the Chiefs. I mean, we're talking, this is, the defending Super Bowl champs, the best player in the league at quarterback. They're just loaded. Tyreek Hill is there. He's healthy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked great. What a pickup for them. They're the Chiefs. We've talked about it here. It's them, in my mind, it's them or Baltimore for the AFC. If Kansas City won back-to-back, if they won the Super Bowl this year, I'm not going to be the least bit surprised. That's how good they are. Right. The Texans aren't there. So taking all that into consideration, I mean, and also the fact that we didn't have a preseason. We talk about, like, with the Longhorns and the UTEP, the Texas UTEP game tonight. This was the first time that the Texans and the Chiefs got to hit somebody that wasn't their teammate.
Yeah.
So you would expect a little bit of rust. That said, I don't think the Texans were necessarily rusty. I think David Johnson looked really sharp. I think he looked as healthy as he's been in the last few years. I think he can be a real asset for the Texans. The defense worries me a bit, but again, it's the Chiefs. How much can we really gain or learn about the Texans defense when they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I am a little okay. I'll say this. I am concerned about there not being a true number 1 receiver for Deshaun Watson. There were moments in that game you can tell he does not have his security blanket in DeAndre Hopkins there. And I think that is going to be something that's going to rear its ugly head this season.
Yeah,
to the point where I
Fuller
think
had
that
8
people are going to discuss
catches.
like that needs to be the first thing addressed for Bill O'Brien is to get a true number 1 receiver.
Well, Fuller had 8 catches and over 100 yards, but he doesn't feel like a number 1. You know, it's just
No.
After that, you look at the catches, and it's David Johnson had 3, Jordan Akins had 2, and he had that really nice move after and made a guy miss.
I thought Akins was good. He had that touchdown catch too, right? Like he
had a touchdown catch and a really nice run after the catch. So he's a guy that they'll be able to depend on a little bit. But Randall Cobb 2 catches, Brandon Cooks 2 catches. Those guys can't have 2 catches. Like that, there needs to be those.
Right.
Even if Fuller has 8, both of those guys can't only have 2 catches.
Right.
That's not going to win any football games at all. Watson came on. I know he ended up throwing the touchdown late,
but before those fourth quarter drives, I'm not going to say like at the fault of him, he didn't look good. And that's where I wonder how much. Look, we talk about how good David Johnson looked, and he did. He looked sharp. It still doesn't justify that trade that Bill O'Brien made, in my mind. It just doesn't.
No, I don't think you got the right value back for it. But you're looking at that, and then you look and see a couple of years from now when Watson's going to be making $40 million and what Hopkins is going to be making on his extension, and there's no way that you can pay 2 guys on the same side of the ball that much money. I'm not disagreeing with you that he didn't get enough in the trade. He had to trade him though, and I think that's the problem is that everybody knew he had to trade him because he wasn't going to be able to sign him long term. So that's we do bash him because he didn't, justifiably so, because he did not get enough for DeAndre Hopkins. But we knew he had to trade him though at that point. When you're looking at it now, anyway, from the self-negotiated DeAndre Hopkins contract, by the way, he's that guy.
A lot of money.
He's and good for him too. Like
for sure.
I'm happy for the guy to get paid, but the point is O'Brien has a vision. David Johnson at 11 to 15 touches. I don't want him touching the ball 25 times, 30 times a game. He needs to touch the ball 15 to 20 times a game max. Hopefully Duke – did we figure out what Duke Johnson – was he – I know Duke Johnson went off.
I don't remember.
But either way,
think they mentioned it during the game, but I don't remember what it was what his status is.
The way that the rushes were divided up, it was David Johnson had 11, Deshaun Watson had 6, Duke Johnson had 5. That to me is percentage-wise in terms of total rushes. That's ideal, actually, in my mind. I think that they're obviously, if they're going to be winning games, they're going to need to have more rushes than what they ran. They only ran the ball 22 times total as a team. I think if the Texans are successful, it's because they're rushing. They're in the 30 rush attempt range as a team total, and they have the guys to do it. But it's week 1. It's the Chiefs. I'm not taking anything out of this. I'm not ready to write anything off yet after week 1. Like you said, first time hitting somebody else. There are some things there that stood out, like David Johnson's sharpness. But we'll see where it goes. It's going to be one of those things where I think after we see a few games with this wide receiver core, which we got a tough schedule coming up, don't they? I mean,
Well, that's what I wanted to get to that because I think we discussed this some shows back about kind of previewing what the Texans were going to be this year.
Yeah.
And as we kind of went through the schedule, I think we ended up around a 9-7 number, right?
Yep.
So they're 0-1 now, but this next 3 weeks, they're playing the Baltimore Ravens. So in the first 2 weeks, they're getting the two best teams in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see this team beating Baltimore. I think Baltimore's got a better defense than Kansas City has, and they're just as explosive offensively as Kansas City. Probably, I mean, you can make the argument in a different way. Like they might even be more difficult to stop because you don't know what it is that you have to stop.
It's just a different kind of
Kansas City. It's like you just
badass.
It's Mahomes. Yeah. It's but Baltimore's got so many weapons. But then they also then it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, which has Roethlisberger back and a pretty good defense. Like that's a team that is going to, I think, be competing for the AFC North. I think they're going to be in that hunt. That's probably a 10-win Pittsburgh team. And then the Minnesota Vikings. This is a brutal 4-game stretch to open up the season. And I think then it's Tennessee after Minnesota.
Jacksonville and then Tennessee.
Jacksonville, then Tennessee. I mean, I think we discussed this a while back. What's a respect? 2 wins out of those first 6? Is that reasonable? Or is that, I shouldn't say is that reasonable. Is that panic mode?
No, I think if the Texans come out of there 2-4, obviously if you get your butt kicked against Baltimore and you don't look like you're improving at all, like this Chiefs loss is not the end of the world. And I guess against the Ravens, if they, I sort of expect a similar kind of game actually. Yeah. I mean, score and everything. I think we're not going to get to see a true sort of look at what hopefully, the offense will continue to develop and we do see some more of those receivers start to step up because they're going to have to, otherwise it's going to get ugly at Baltimore quickly. But I think 2-4, you coming out of there, would you like to be 3-3? Sure, that would be ideal to at least be 3-3 coming out of those first 6 games. But 2-4 to me is not the end of the world, especially looking at the way that the schedule unfolds after that.
Yeah, exactly. And it just sounds crazy. You talk about a 1-5, 2-4 type situation to open up the season where it sounds on itself pretty bad, but then you look at who they've been playing and it's kind of like, well, I mean, you would kind of understand it, but it just leaves not a lot of – the margin for error is definitely a lot lower the second half of the season than this one is. So
we've written off Bill O'Brien before when he's had slow starts, and then we look back on it and it's like, well, those losses look like they make a little more sense now. And now that he's playing the weaker part of the schedule, the Texans are sort of taking shape and we see them at their fullest potential. And I think that's going to be this type of season. We're going to be talking going into week 7 against who will it be? The Packers. So we'll be talking, which will be, Aaron Rodgers. Anytime you see Aaron Rodgers is tough. So we'll be going into that game, and that will be a turning point. That'll be the sort of the which way that season will go. If they're 2-4 and you're sitting there and you get the Packers at home and you lose that game, now it might be time to start thinking that it could be time to panic. Even though you get Jacksonville the next week, which Jacksonville should be 2 wins circled easy. Write them in right now. This season, I just don't think Jacksonville will present any challenge whatsoever.
No.
But if you lose that game to the Packers and you're 2-5, that may be a problem. So yeah, they're going to have to find a way to win a couple of these here that maybe on paper it's like that's a tough one.
Yeah, for sure. In regards to this week of NFL action, any games that stand out to you this Sunday or Monday?
I'm just ready to watch some football, man. Like flip back and forth, game to game.
Oh yeah, man.
It's
get your clicker warmed up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good week. I think we'll see some good football. I mean, I wouldn't say that the Chiefs and Texans was bad football. I think there was some rust, but I think that it was some good football played by some talented players.
Yeah, I think that second half it felt more like regular season NFL football. That
Right.
first half did feel like both teams were kind of working the kinks out a little bit and ironing it all out. So
that's Sunday night. I guess the game tomorrow night will be the one that I'm most looking forward to. I'm anxious to see what Dallas looks like.
Yeah, same.
I think CeeDee Lamb scores tomorrow night. I think he makes his stamp from night one. There were a lot of good receivers in this draft, and I was very vocal about, in my opinion, of him being the top guy. And I think he'll make a statement. He'll make a statement tomorrow night. I am looking forward to that one. Anything stand out to you?
I think the same thing. I think that Cowboys-Rams game Sunday night, opening up that new building in LA, the $5 billion mega stadium there in Los Angeles that Stan Kroenke, the owner of Arsenal too, that's a different discussion for another day about where the $5 billion where that came from. But I'm curious to see that. I mean, the stadium's going to be something to see on TV, but honestly, I think the football is going to be really interesting. The Cowboys are a team that there's a lot of expectations on them this year, and they've got all the weapons. The defense is going to be okay, maybe a plus for them, but that's a team that's supposed to make some noise in the NFC, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do at LA Sunday night. But me and you, we've basically been running the CeeDee Lamb fan club over here since the draft, or even before the draft, because we both thought that obviously we got to see him up close and personal every year when he was in Norman, but thanks Charlie Strong, by the way, but that's but so when he fell to the Cowboys at that draft, I think we were texting each other that night saying, if Jerry doesn't take him here, he's out of his mind. And he snapped him right up.
That shit-eating grin he had on his face after they made that pick, he knew he got a steal with that pick. But I'm not a Jerry Jones fan by any stretch of the imagination, but you knew, you could look at the guy. He didn't screw it up. He was like, he knew he didn't screw it up too. That's that look on that guy's face was like, I know I didn't I know that this is the right pick, because he just fell to. We couldn't believe that Lamb fell to them. And that's going to benefit them for a long time if he's healthy. And they signed Dak Prescott to I've been saying that Dak is going to get $40 million when he signs his deal, and I feel like he's going to have a season where $40 million guaranteed is going to be. That might be the lower end of what he's looking at if he has the season that I think he's going to have. So it's going to be good. And go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say those pieces for his contract are falling into place. Mahomes got his deal, obviously. Deshaun Watson recently got his deal.
Mm-hmm.
Those numbers are starting to clarify a little bit over what Dak is going to get in Dallas, which I think we've discussed this before. Like, he's going to get that money in Dallas.
Yep.
I don't know. Crazy things have happened. I do not foresee a situation where he is not the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
No, I agree.
In the future. I mean, obviously he is this year, but like in the future where they just say, well, we're not going to pay him that kind of money, he's got to go. I don't see that happening. That'd be insanity.
Not a chance. Nope. Can't do it. And they got lucky when he fell to them in the draft, because Jerry Jones was so in love with Paxton Lynch, and who's been cut again, who didn't make a regular season roster again. Dak Prescott happens to be there at their pick, and what was it, the third round? And then it's like was the guy. Fourth round. That was the guy, and we knew that was you and I had conversations about Prescott. He was the captain early on in his career in college. He was the leader from the start, and he performed. And that's the kind of guy that you don't have to blow the doors off in college to know that that's going to be a good NFL quarterback.
Agreed.
And Prescott's always been one of those guys. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Lamar Jackson.
Well, he doesn't have to be.
But he's not, exactly. He doesn't need to be those guys. He needs to be Dak Prescott, and he will be this year, and it's going to get him paid.
Absolutely. And we have a little bit more to discuss about Dak here in the breakfast wrap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, last thing on the Cowboys, just on the draft note about how well they've drafted. That's been something that stood out for me. We talk about how something like, when CeeDee Lamb falls into your lap, it's kind of like, yeah, you have to take him. But a lot of other teams were passing on him, so he ended up getting to that point. But whether you want to say it's Stephen Jones or whoever's actually, driving the ship and making the decisions on that, like you mentioned the Paxton Lynch thing, or like they had to wrestle the phone away to, when he wanted to draft Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
So I think we can pretty safely say it's Stephen Jones that is steering the yacht at this point.
Yeah.
And they've done a really good job in the draft. Personnel decisions. I think the Amari Cooper trade worked out pretty well for them. And they got him signed to a long-term deal. I think they've done a pretty good job personnel-wise, and that's why I think Dak thing's going to get done. I just don't see them screwing that up. They've been so steady in a way with how they've built that team.
That's what they've done, though. That's what the Cowboys have done. They've just not screwed it up.
Yeah.
Like they got rid of Garrett. Finally, they finally determined that, okay, that was screwing up. They made the move. Finally, the draft picks have been there. I think McCarthy. It's like they're getting all the right guys. They're all falling into Jerry's lap at the right time. I'm not a Cowboys fan. They're going to be so good this year. I just feel like they are going to be like 12 wins good. I think they're going to be great.
Do you think, Jason Garrett had some good teams there.
Yep.
Do you think McCarthy is the kind of coach that gets them over the hump? Maybe not winning a Super Bowl, but he's been there. He's won one. Is McCarthy the kind of coach that gets them at least, what would you set the expectation at? An NFC Championship game?
I don't know if that's this year, but I think that he does bring them to the next level as a club. Yeah, I think he elevates them immediately just by walking in the door. I don't know that's – it still seems like the type of club to me that could win 12 games in the regular season and then lose like the divisional round type of a thing. And then you still have, is McCarthy the guy? Blah, blah, blah. No, Mike McCarthy's the guy. And I don't know if Dak Prescott is ready to be an NFC Championship or a Super Bowl qualifying quarterback, But I think he'll play well enough during the regular season, and McCarthy will coach this team well enough. So the short answer, I guess, Kerry, is yes. I think McCarthy gets them to the next level. This year, I'm not sure. But regular season-wise, I think they have a great year. I think Dak gets paid, and I think they start to build this team with McCarthy at the helm and Dak Prescott long-term as their quarterback. So, yeah, I think long-term, yeah, he gets them over the hump.
Yeah, I think they're kind of well positioned with what the NFC is looking like right now.
Yeah.
San Francisco is the defending conference champs, but what's funny about that, like you look at their offense and it's kind of like there's nothing that really scares you about San Francisco on that side of the ball. They're dynamic, but like
that's team, man. Yeah, that's Shano over there calling those plays. Like that's what worries me about. Or not worries me. That's what would, if I was a 49er fan, I guess would excite me is Shanahan over there running the show is talk about a phenom and we'll see if he can sustain that. We've seen those young coaches that have come in and sort of taken the league by storm, your McVays, the Chip Kelly offenses, the sort of things that people aren't used to seeing. With let's get some tape on Kyle Shanahan as a play caller and see how he adjusts to that. But that's what would excite me about that. But to your point, Kerry, despite that, the NFC to me is wide open. I think that
Right,
there are any
exactly.
number of teams that could hop in. I think that's the point you were making, is that there's any number of teams that if you told me that's going to be the representative from the NFC in the Super Bowl, I'd be like, yeah, that's absolutely believable.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with the, looking at the Cowboys, is that, you go, okay, well, there's New Orleans, but you can, Drew Brees is going to decline at some point. If that's a game
You would think.
yeah, well, you would think, but like,
The guy just, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, the Packers aren't, fully loaded, and there's, personality issues between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur and all those things that are going on there. Like, this isn't a situation where we're going, the AFC is going to be Kansas City and Baltimore. In my mind, I mean, Tennessee damn near pulled it off last year, but like, I think it's wide open in the NFC. I think every team has flaws, but interestingly enough, I see the Cowboys as being the least flawed out of those. Now with McCarthy, like last year, you could obviously say like, well, Jason Garrett is a detriment to what is going on there. But now with McCarthy, it kind of seems like they've sorted, like you said, it kind of takes them to a different level. It sorts out the coaching factor of it. We already know that the offense is going to score a ton of points. The defense is going to be decent. Is that enough to get over a San Francisco who has their own flaws in terms of personnel and those kinds of things? But it'll be interesting. We'll see it Sunday night, see what they look like. And, it's like you said, the NFC is going to be wide open. I think Arizona can make a case if they kind of put together the pieces there that people think they can, and Tampa.
If Kyler Murray takes the next step forward, like a lot of people are expecting him to,
they're going to be super dangerous
under Kingsbury. That's a team to watch. Absolutely. Arizona was a good one to bring up as sort of a dark horse, because that's, man, if Kyler Murray's firing off on all cylinders, if that offense is rolling, man, under Kingsbury, that's dangerous. And that's a defense that isn't going – they're going to get better. That's a team that I think we should be talking a little bit more about, and that's a team to watch for me in the next few weeks, to sort of see how they start their season. But to your point, I think that Dallas – would it surprise me if Dallas ended up in the Super Bowl this year? No. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But they're in that handful of teams that if whatever falls their way,
yeah,
I could see Dallas absolutely making a run just because of everything that we've already talked about today. I don't think it'll happen this season for them, but would I be surprised to see Dallas in the Super Bowl? No.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun season in the NFC. Well, all across the NFL. It's going to be entertaining, I think.
And don't forget, man, tonight, it's Sunday night. So who's going to bring us into Sunday night like nobody else can?
Oh, well.
Kerry Underwood.
I was just keep thinking about the Collinsworth slide. When they get to the broadcast and it's Al Michaels sitting there, and then you have Chris Collinsworth going.
And you got
he comes sliding in. There's a great YouTube compilation of the Collinsworth slide.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great. I was referring to Sunday night.
Oh yeah. What a tune.
Kerry getting down with it and bringing us in like only Kerry can. Yeah, anyways, that's enough of Kerry Underwood. Yeah, that'll be a good game tonight, man.
You started looking off into the distance there a little bit. It's like, we got to rein you back in there, Jay. We got to bring you back in. You started getting a little wistful.
Come on back, buddy. Come on back.
Let's keep it here.
Let's keep it here.
Well,
we got a show to finish, man.
Yeah. Then we can let you go, Jay. We'll let you get to the seat.
Oh, that's what happened.
Oh man.
There we go. All right.
Let's wrap this thing up. Let's get into the breakfast wrap.
Please, let's do it.
We were already on the subject of the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. There was some news this week. I guess, what was this, at a press conference or just the Cowboys media availability this week, whatever it might have been. Dak Prescott very openly discussed his recent struggles with anxiety and depression. His brother committed suicide earlier this year. And I don't have this stuff right here in front of me, but I mean, he's lost, was this another brother that has passed away, or was it his parents? Something. He's had
a rough go at it, man.
a really rough go, even going back to before his time at Mississippi State. But yeah, he very candidly talked about his anxiety and depression battles this year, and which I think is fantastic. I think more people need to discuss mental health matters to help destigmatize things like anxiety and depression.
Absolutely.
So I applaud Dak massively for having the courage to talk about these things in a public manner and all that. I mean, that's newsworthy and notable in its own right? That the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys openly talks about his battles with mental health. There was another aspect to this that took it kind of to a completely other level of newsworthiness or discussion, and that was Skip Bayless, the hot take merchant that has essentially made, I mean, how would you describe this, Jay? He's made a career off of being outlandish. I mean, what was it? He got run out of the Dallas Morning News, right, for insinuating that Troy Aikman was gay back in the 90s. He's a guy that intentionally does not make friends wherever he goes because it's attention grabbing. It makes him.
That's his gimmick.
That's his whole bit is hot takes and pissing people off, being divisive. Jay, did you see what he had to say about Dak Prescott discussing his mental health?
First of all, I want to echo what you said and applaud Dak Prescott for openly discussing his struggles with mental health, with anxiety, with depression. I agree with what you said earlier. There's a stigma around mental health in our country, in the world that needs that's a wall that needs to come down quickly. There's a lot of people that work through problems on a regular basis, and some of them feel like they can't talk about them because of the way that mental health is stigmatized, and we need to get rid of that quickly. And the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys speaking up and speaking out is an excellent way. It's a huge voice in pop culture, I guess, if you will. The quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys is a very important role, no matter how you feel about that team. So good on Dak for speaking up. I saw what Bayless had to say, and while I wasn't surprised that it came from Skip Bayless, I was disappointed that he felt like that was a line that he could cross. Calling somebody weak because they battle anxiety and struggle with depression, to me, is one of the lowest kinds of insults you can give a person. It's one of the lowest sort of things that anybody could say about another person, to make it seem like you're weak because this is something that you're battling, and that you had the guts to speak up about. Like, you can't play quarterback, you're weak because that's going to hinder your ability to be a leader because you're struggling with this. And man, that I'll just say that does not sit very well with me. And
no.
It's angering to know that sort of thing was, and he was reprimanded for it, but he doesn't give a shit. That's his bit.
He came back and said that he doesn't apologize for anything and that he stands where he stands on it. That, I don't have the exact initial quote here in front of me, but you pretty much nailed it. It was Dak Prescott is weak for talking about these things, and he just needs to suck it up. He needs to, basically, it's the good old, you just need to be a man and get over it, suck it up, and don't, you're the quarterback. How can you be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys and be anxious and depressed? Whole thing. When and it just so had, the irony of it was that it was on national, like World Suicide Prevention Day. And I mean, the list of celebrities or notable people, and you know, it's not just celebrities, obviously, but those are the ones that get news attention that have committed suicide for various reasons, all those things. But there's people that do it that aren't celebrities, and it happens to them every day because they're struggling with something that they are. I mean, they're struggling with it.
Yep.
And like you said, for someone of the you know, popularity or
Status, I guess.
status, whatever you want to call it. He's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, to come out and openly discuss his struggles with this. I mean, that's the kind of thing that people need is, you know, if you're struggling with that, to know that you're not alone in it, and that, hey, if the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys can be depressed, then it's okay for me to be fighting that same kind of battle too. Skip Bayless is the lowest form of, you know, media personality, if you want to call him that. I mean, it's the attention grabbing, the divisiveness, the whole thing. You know, it's a shame that someone like him has the kind of platform that he does. And I wouldn't say it's I definitely wouldn't say it's a surprising thing, but it's, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. And it's like, and what was I angry to watch when he said it? Like watching the video back, watching the clip, did it make me angry? Yeah. But it's like, I'm not going to give that clown any more of my energy than I already have in thinking about this, because it's people like that, like this toxic, you know, culture that you have to be a certain way to be successful or to be a leader. And it's just when clowns like that are gone and off of, once we finally realize in mainstream, like once the mainstream freaking society realizes that that's not cool, like nobody should think that way, and we start to rid ourselves of people like Skip Bayless from platforms that a lot of people actually take in their information,
right?
We'll be a better place. We'll become a better society, because there are fewer and fewer people that think the way that Skip Bayless thinks, but he still has a platform. So, you know, I already don't watch anything that he's associated with to begin with. I don't watch talking head shows. I don't watch the back and forth debate shows. I don't need to watch those shows I can form my own opinions without
we film
watching
our own.
two guys. Yeah, exactly. Like, but we're not Hot Take Central here, man. You know, like we sure could be if we wanted to. Like, there's some things that we could hot take it if we wanted to. Man. But, you know, like, it's not what I watch sports programming for, and that it's just we need as a society to get rid of that thought process and just embrace who we are and who other people are, and understand that it's okay to not be okay.
Exactly. And I'll say this, my final note on it is just, as bad as the Skip Bayless thing was that he said, the response to it was just as encouraging. The amount of people that came out, not only just in support of Dak, but like to shout down Skip Bayless and that take, was encouraging to see. You know, it was something like, it was essentially a consensus amongst everybody that, like, he shouldn't have done that. And that's where the progress, I feel, has been made, where years ago it might have just been a little bit of a discussion. It actually probably would have been more of a normal discussion. People go, oh wow, you know, is this going to affect him to be a leader of the Dallas Cowboys? Now that's not normal to do that. It's not right to do that. And the response has been encouraging. So, but that's progress though, right? There's always the setback, but it's the response that shows kind of where everybody's at, everybody else. So anyway,
it's the same thing with all the civil unrest. Every time that it gets louder and louder. Now with a conversation like this revolving around mental health, it's steering more and more in the right direction. And every time a clown like Skip Bayless does something like this, the responses are louder and louder, and more people start to realize and learn. Maybe it takes clowns like Skip Bayless to help other people learn that that's not right. Maybe there's a place for guys like that, just so we can point to that and say, all right, guys, that's what not to do.
There's a really good point in there, Jay. I think that's a perfect way to sum it up. You don't want to do away with them completely, because how is she going to be reminded that, society's better than what they're presenting? So that's a great point. Well, I think that's about all we got today. Good show. Get your clicker ready for tonight, 7 p.m. All the action is happening in sports. Yeah. So get your Longhorn Network. What channel are the Astros on tonight? AT&T Sports South Houston, or whatever the obscure network they're on. And
I think they're on rootsports.edu or something like that on the web. If you look,
$20 a month subscription plan or whatever for that.
Who knows what? All I know.
Root Sports Third Ward.
Yeah. If you're in Austin, it'll be on 97.5 on your radio dial. So tune in there if you're close here. Otherwise, look it up on your local television stations. But watch the Astros. Hopefully they do well tonight. Rockets, we don't think they're gonna come through. I think both of us think that series is over. But watch it anyway. Longhorns, that game should be over by halftime. And what am I forgetting? Stars,
yeah. They're either on NBC or NBC Sports, 7:00 for that one. So, yeah, get that remote warmed up. Get all your devices set.
Yeah.
If you don't have a Longhorn Network, 104.9, the silky sounds of Craig Way will be coursing through the room if you put that on the radio.
The dulcet tones.
Oh, yeah. And you can just get a nice little ear massage at 7 p.m.
Yeah, you could
the king of six-man football himself, Craig Way.
I tell you what, no kidding. Say goodnight to this one. Yeah.
Oh, do you think win he does from six-man school mule dick tonight, and they're.
Do you think when he calls like a game like that, Thrall plays, that he says, say goodnight to this one? Do you think he still gives the same calls? Yeah, I bet he does too. Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah. And I guarantee you, like some parent sitting down like in the stands or something can hear him in the press box when that happens. Like they go, oh, that sounds like Craig Way's here tonight.
Yeah. Another touchdown for Dimebox. Say goodnight to. Like what the I love it. I love Craig Way, man. He's a homer, but I love him. He's great. Yeah, tune in tonight. Hook 'em, baby. Let's do it.
Hook 'em. Let's go. Sports. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And, we'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all.
Peace.
ATX represent. Fatal, baby.
All in 06 on a Saturday. Can the drip and swing now?